Ezekiel chapter 35 and verse 1. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee, since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh. In the name of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi, grace, mercy, and peace be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that are waiting on the second coming of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi HaMashiach. Just going into this lesson, it's basically a 2-for-1 concerning the past couple of days of observance that we do at this time, which will be during the 12th month of the original Hebrew calendar. As we know, the 13th day of that month is the day of the destruction of Nicanor, and then you also have the day of the Feast of Purim as well. And what I'm doing is just kind of piecing together some things that I've seen and noticing just some of the stuff that is being sent out there in the media, and it's coinciding with the same type of story that you've seen that was going on in the ancient world, dealing with the time of the Maccabees, and then dealing in the time of what was known as the Book of Esther in the Scriptures, right? So what I'm doing is I'm going to show y'all a video, some articles, information, and then we're going to kind of go over, the 2 days that we're commemorating. So I know for some of y'all brothers, depending on when your new moon came in, it might have came in, on February 10th or 11th, according to whatever sources that you're looking at. I know some brothers may be a month ahead or behind, just depending on what calendar they're following. We are rehearsing the righteous acts. I know that most Israelite groups actually happen to have the same month. So we've actually been having our own calendar. One of the brothers actually sets it up every year, and it happens to fall right in line with different events that occur out there. So for us spiritually, with us wanting to rehearse the righteous acts and observe these days according to the works of our forefathers, that's what we're doing. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into a video that was actually circulating concerning this particular topic. As you see here, this is February 24th. Okay, all right, so this is one of the reasons why you got to really understand how spiritual these high holy days and also these days of observances are, because so much stuff happens sometimes right and around or on that day that gives you signs of certain things to come, or just gives you a memory to memorize these things. And for those of our people that are self-proclaimed Israelites, some people call themselves Hebrew Israelites. Okay, when you go through these high holy days and you go through these different days of observances, and you realize some of the parallel situations that our forefathers were in and that what we're in now, it amazes me how you have a set of our people that also want to save the same, race assassination of people that were planning or did atrocities against us. In fact, this is one of the reasons why we have to commemorate these days, to give us a remembrance of these things, okay, to remind us of the danger that our forefathers faced and how the Most High delivered us out of the hands of our enemies and destroyed them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this video. This is actually, again, from the House Committee hearing on the rise of domestic terrorism. If you've been following us years ago, one of the things that we'd always say is that Jake, okay, particularly the tribe of Judah, is going to be viewed as the face of terrorism. Okay, we've said that many times. We've done many lessons on some of the things that they're doing, and this whole capital This whole Capitol invasion that happened back on January 6th, we said before that this whole thing is to promote the idea that domestic terrorism is a problem. They're using the quote-unquote white domestic terrorism as a face initially, and then they're going to switch up the mask, and that's what they're in the process of doing, and you're going to see it as we go through these articles in this video. All right.
And they targeted you because excuse me, I'm sorry. They targeted you.
Ever since then, they've continued to escalate death threats against me and not to leave my home.
And they targeted you because you had the courage as a journalist to accurately portray what they were doing and what kind of tactics they engaged in, and the harm and violence that they caused. Is that right?
That's what I believe, yes.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, look, we need consistency. We need to condemn all violence. Republicans condemn the violence that took place on the 6th. We condemn the violence that took place for 120 straight days in Portland when Antifa was laying siege to the federal building. While that was happening, we had our colleagues talk about they needed more unrest in the streets. At the very time unrest was happening in the streets, we had our colleagues say that the organization that tried to end your life and that for 120 days had violence happening every single day in Portland, that organization was a myth. Look, this is so important. I appreciate Mr. No's willingness to talk about the consistency that is needed from everyone, from both sides of the aisle, to address this problem and get violence out of our political process. Madam Chair, with that, I would yield back.
Mr. Chair.
Oh no, excuse me. I got to yield to. I wanted to save time for the ranking member. I yield to the ranking member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Without objection, I would like to introduce into the record an article from August 29, 2008. It's a report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about the Black Hebrew Israelites entitled "Racist Black Hebrew Israelites Becoming More Militant," and also a 2019 SPLC article describing the New Jersey attack and the militancy of the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Without objection, so ordered. I'm going to introduce into the record, without objection, Daily Beast article, Capitol Police Officer, Trumpist riders call me the N-word.
So basically, as you see there, he wanted to interject and put on there on the record of the House Committee information concerning, quote unquote, the Black Hebrew Israelites. This is what they're doing, is they're creating a paper trail. Okay, they're creating a paper trail, an audio trail, that these things were brought up. So that way, as they start to orchestrate certain things, potentially in different events, then they can always go back to this particular quote unquote warning. And see, you got people like Sheila Jackson Lee, who actually is based out here in Houston, where we're at, who will present in front of this particular committee, not understanding what's really going on, and really be complicit in, what would happen to our people once they start making their move, right? And you see how he slyly interjected that in and added that to all the stuff that Antifa was doing, that, the Proud Boys and other organizations were doing, truthers, QAnon, whoever you want to call them, were allegedly doing. As we said before, if you go back, when this whole thing went down, the first thing we said is that this was all planned, it's all orchestrated. We need brothers and sisters to not be bamboozled by some of these things. It's just something that is becoming so orchestrated and so obvious that if you're not keeping your eyes open, you're going to be deceived by some of the stuff that they're doing. Understand that they have different levels of deception that they can do. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to go into some of the things that they can do with the resources that they have. Okay, but as you heard there, they use the term, remember, the term Black Hebrew Israelite is a COINTELPRO CIA term. It's a buzzword. It's a term that they have already used to coin a segment of the population as terrorists by giving them that. That's the same reason why you have guys like Vocab Malone who use those same exact terms as they're going up against different Israelite groups, and they're orchestrating this stuff against, our people. Okay. In fact, the agent okay, Vocab Malone, he also on his Instagram recently this week said that there's going to be an attack from black Hebrew Israelites in the near future. So he's already saying these things, okay? So they're already projecting these things, man. You know, we have to understand that they're trying to create a narrative that will then be, when they create a situation, it'll be then used as a way to condemn, okay, and to persecute those of our people that are pursuing, you know, this salvation, okay. So I'm gonna show you this right here. This is an interview. Y'all should watch it. I was watching it earlier on CNN, and they interviewed this guy who I did a lesson on this particular guy, who is considered the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. And this guy has all the hallmarks of an informant, of an agent. I mean, bro, it's so obvious. I mean, when you peep just his outfit that he's wearing you know, sunglasses, the hat, even his build, like everything about this guy says like he's an agent, okay? And if you watch the interview and you see how he's talking, it's very scripted, and he's not getting persecuted, okay? Like, bro, when you watch the interview, you should just know what's going on, okay? And they're using these quote-unquote incidents of domestic disturbance as a precursor to say that this is going to continue to boil over. And remember, they had the article, the information from, I believe, the FBI, saying that disgruntled quote-unquote black people are at a high possibility to go and do some kind of domestic terrorism. This is what they're already putting out there. All right, so that's just for y'all to know. If y'all want to check this out, look up the title of this article, Google it. You can read it and you can watch this video. Of course, I don't want no, media strike or whatever because I played the video. So I'm just kind of keeping it as is. Now, on to the next portion as well, okay? Because we're going to get into the destruction of Nicanor. We're going to get into the Esther as well. But I'm trying to build up to it for the sake of, showing you brothers and sisters what's going on. Now, another thing. This is from Twitter. This is actually from African Diaspora News Channel. This is actually Phil, okay, the guy that originally was known as Phil from The Advice Show. He's actually based out here in Houston. He has one of the most popular, largest, quote-unquote, black independent news outlets in the world. Not just in the country, in the world, okay? And he's actually been told he's an Israelite. He actually understands who Esau is. Unfortunately, you got our people that are trying to take this melanin content, and if I got hair that's, can hold a pit comb, we're all brothers and sisters identity thing. That's, how some of these guys are, and he's one of those guys. I do believe he's sincere about wanting to, look after our people. He seemed like a sincere guy when he initially started this whole thing. He actually has talked and had interviews with Israelites. I believe he even had an interview with I want to say Zabak at one point. So he's open to hearing what brothers have to say. And, of course, in the end, we don't know when somebody will come into the belief and, and then also pursue the true gospel of Yahawashi HaMashiach. But anyways, this particular clip that the brother put up was actually showing you what's going on. And this is one of the reasons why we have to understand, why is the Most High telling us that nations have a hatred for us? Okay, they are conspiring and confederate with Esau on this particular thing. Now this right here says the clip is from ABC Nightline, is beyond racist and disgusting. I'm gonna play it. This is from ABC. As a black person, I know nor anyone I know that's black have harmed Asian people. Your clip leads the listener to believe all black Americans are harming Asians. Okay, now this I'm gonna play it and then I'm gonna explain, this particular clip that you're seeing right here in the beginning. Okay.
In what ways have blacks been pitted against Asians?
We need the black community to realize that the that black people are hurting Asians and they need to speak out in their own community.
Our communities are not reporting these incidences. We don't want to cause more trouble, more attention to our community.
It strikes me that this is the Asian equivalent of the talk that African American parents often have to have with their children. In what ways have blacks been pitted against Asians?
So as you see there, they're on ABC Nightline, they're creating this narrative of these quote-unquote wave of attacks against quote-unquote Asian people. Videos was being published, circulating throughout media about all these quote-unquote Asians that were randomly being attacked. And, you know, just basically they're making up a narrative to now create the boogeyman. Again, you know, some of the stuff we said years ago in the spirit is coming to fruition. About Jake, you're being created, being manifested in the eyes of the public as being a boogeyman, a monster. And they're using other quote-unquote minority groups. You see all these people that ran to the polls. You voted for Uncle Joe Biden, okay, who just the other day was on TV, had a Freudian slip and called you the N-word, okay? You can look it up, okay? He's had Freudian slips with his old age. Remember, this guy, one of his mentors, is actually a former Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. This is something that was already proven, okay? This is beyond the shadow of a doubt. And our people are very excited about this quote-unquote election happening. And look what they're doing. They're doing a complete 180. They're actually making you the racist now. Then they're using another group of people, the quote-unquote model minority, that was been propped up the last 50 years to say that you're harming these innocent people. And, you know, we need to have a discussion about this. And just like, you know, Phil said from, you know, African Diaspora News Network, he's saying that he don't know anybody that's going out of their way targeting these people. And we don't. And if anything, our people patronize their businesses more than anybody else, okay, on average. And on top of that, quote-unquote East Asians, they don't patronize any businesses of so-called black people. Even so-called Latinos, they don't patronize those businesses. They have a cultural boycott to not even patronize those businesses. So for them to say this, they're now getting in cahoots. And guess what? All these little celebrities and all these people that are influencers have went around the internet. I've seen it all over the place. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And they're basically trying to shame our people as if we're going out of our way to, as a group, to attack them. You know? With these random videos that they're just putting up. And some of these people don't even have identities. You don't know what race they are. Meanwhile, the last time that I checked, we've never even went to war, at least in these modern days, against these people, right? Meaning as if we're benefiting. Remember, you have David Fagan, I believe his name was, who during the American-Philippines War, I want to say that was during the time of President Theodore Roosevelt, he was a so-called black soldier that defected the U.S. Army to go fight and help the Filipinos in war. Okay, which we know a lot of our people are scattered over there. We have brothers and sisters that are over there in the Philippines. We've had our people that went and fought in the Vietnam War, and you had some Vietnamese on the other side saying, "So, brother, this is not your war. Go home." You had Muhammad Ali, all right, who is considered one of the greatest, most influential athletes of all time. Our people who did not even want to go to war over there in Asia to fight against a people that he had no problems with. But you see, everything comes full circle when you start seeing what's going on. And guess what? This community, okay, of Asians who primarily are Moabites, not all of them. You have our people that are scattered amongst the quote-unquote Chinese and Korean peoples. We understand that. But we understand that when you examine what's going on, this is all part of an intricate plot to take down the children of Israel. And they're building up a coalition of nations against our people here, okay? And they're using this narrative because they cannot use any other group because it wouldn't make any sense. So what they said is, well, look, we're going to use y'all And now this narrative is being pushed out. So guess what's happening? Now you have this right here. This is on MSNBC.com. This says New York, California lawmakers promise resources protection in wake of attacks on Asian seniors. California passed legislation that will allocate $1.4 million to researching and reporting anti-Asian hate incidents. Okay? And do you know how hard it is to actually commit a hate crime against Asians when you figure how economically insulated they are from the rest of other communities? The fact that if you go and you go anywhere, if you're so-called black and you go to an quote-unquote Asian area, they're watching you like a hawk. If you go into their stores, they're watching you like a hawk. So for them to actually say that this is happening, this is all part of persecution, removal of our people. This is also probably a real estate grab going on, because when you look at some of these areas, like in New York, a large population of Asians live out in Queens. You brothers in New York know what I'm talking about. Okay? Then you got California. Chinatown in the Bay Area is right next to Oakland, which has been gone under a massive amount of gentrification. One thing that Esau understands is that as an economic partner, the Moabite man and woman are a very good tool for them to help speed up gentrification against so-called black and so-called Hispanic peoples. This is actually proven. Go to many of these different cities in California, you'll see what has happened over the last 30 to 40 years in regards to gentrification. Come to Houston. Go to Southwest Houston, A-Leaf, you see the same thing that's happening over there as well. You go to New York, go to Queens, okay? Go to different parts of Brooklyn. You're going to see the same type of thing that's going on in those places. So we have to understand that there's a movement going on, and guess what? Esau's not the only nation that hates you, but he will grab a coalition of other nations against you, and you have to understand what's going on. Don't be out there running all up in a Chinatown and thinking that things are going to be hunky-dory. You don't know how things are going to pop off in the near future. And guess what? If you look at lines out there in China, there's videos of them attacking and killing, okay, our people over there, okay? There's the brother actually brought that up to me the other day, about how that particular video of that student, all right, that was, I believe he was from Nigeria or Ghana. He was out there. He was hanging out with one of his his Chinese friends. It was a female that he went to school with, and they brutalized him, and they brutalized him and beat him to death. They beat him to death. They for minutes they were just whooping up on him. They were hitting him with objects. He bled out to death, and they killed him. Okay, so if you think that's only you only got to worry about Esau, you got to worry about other nations as well, and they're basically on that preparation. Now, I'm not gonna read this article. If you want to read this article another time, look up this same title, and you're gonna see what it's talking about, this narrative that they're creating. So let's go ahead and go into this real quick, just concerning the destruction of Nicanor. Now, this is 1 Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 26. Then the king sent Nicanor, or some people say Nicanor, one of his honorable princes, okay, a man that bear deadly hate unto Israel, with commandment to destroy the people. Okay, so look at that, deadly hate. Okay, deadly hate. Okay, now here it is. You got these people that think that these nations change. You got these of our people that say all nations can be saved, and you don't even understand that you have nations, okay, and men among these nations that have a deadly hatred towards you and want to destroy you. And this is one of the reasons why we commemorated the day, the 13th day of the 12th month. Okay, some people say the 12th month is known as the month of Adar. Okay, where we just celebrate this destruction of this clansman. Okay, he would have been a clansman in his era. Okay, he took great joy of trying to kill our people. So we're going to go on into this. You can actually see more when you go through the first Maccabees as well. But we're just going to go ahead and go through Maccabees chapter 14, and we're going to kind of skip on down. I recommend y'all read this chapter 14 and 15 to kind of get a good idea about it, okay? Let me see here. So let's go ahead and get this right here, because this is kind of long, but we'll start right here. This is verse 30. Notwithstanding, when Maccabeus saw that Nicanor began to be churlish unto him, and that he entreated him more roughly than he was wont, perceiving that such sour behavior came not of good, he gathered together not a few of his men and withdrew himself from Nicanor. Okay? So basically what happened was Maccabeus saw that Nicanor was acting kind of funny style. He was like, hold on, the way this dude is acting, I need to get away from this dude and get my boys. Now, some of our people, they would actually run right into that particular situation. They would just be like, oh, shoot, Nicanor's cool, man. You know, he's cool. And all he's going to do is just draw a sword against you and murk you. Okay, so he was operating in wisdom because, look, what we just read in 1 Maccabees 7, that this man had bare daily hatred against Israel. So him acting good around you and cheerful around you, that's funny style. Okay? So verse 31, but the other, knowing that he was notably prevented by Judas' policy, came into the great and holy temple and commanded the priests that were offering their usual sacrifice to deliver him the man. And when they swore that they could not tell where the man was whom he sought, he stretched out his right hand toward the temple and made an oath in this matter: if ye will not deliver me Judas as a prisoner, I will lay this temple of God even with the ground, and I will break down the altar and erect a notable temple unto Bacchus. Okay, and this is what Esau does, man. This is his modus operandi, his love to destroy the temple. Okay, this is something that we had talked about, this week on a conference call. Right, this behavior of his, it gives him great joy. Okay, it says, after these words he departed. Then the priests lifted up their hands towards heaven and besought him that was ever a defender of their nation, saying in this manner: Thou, O Lord of all things, who hast need of nothing, wast pleased that the temple of thine habitation should be among us. Therefore now, O holy Lord of all holiness, keep this house ever undefiled, which lately was cleansed, and stop every unrighteous mouth. Now was there accused unto Nicanor one Raziz, one of the elders of Jerusalem, a lover of his countrymen, and a man of very good report, who for kindness was called a father of the Jews. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down. For in the former times, when they mingled not themselves with the Gentiles, he had been accused of Judaism, and did boldly jeopard his body and life with all vehemency for the religion of the Jews. So Nicanor, willing to declare the hate that he bore unto the Jews, here's that word hate again, sent about 5,000 men of war to take him. So they basically, this is like in former times going into this guy Raziz, okay, about what Nicanor wanted to do to him, because he was zealous for the law of our forefathers, and he wanted to follow the Most High, Yahweh, right? But Nicanor didn't like that, so he got men to come after him, for he thought by taking him to do the Jews much worse. Now when the multitude would have taken the tower and violently broken into the outer door and bade that fire should be brought to burn it, he, being ready to take on every side, fell upon his sword, choosing rather to die manfully than to come into the hands of the wicked, to be abused otherwise than beseemed his noble birth. But missing his stroke through haste, the multitude also rushing within the doors, he ran boldly up to the wall and cast himself down manfully among the thicket of them. But they quickly giving back, and space being made, he fell down in the midst of the void place. Nevertheless, whilst there was yet breath within him, being inflamed with anger, he rose up, and though his blood gushed out his sprouts of water, and his wounds were grievous, yet he ran through the midst of the throng, and standing upon a steep rock, when as his blood was now quite gone, he plucked out his bowels, and taking them in both his hands, he cast them upon the throng, and calling upon the Lord of life and spirit to restore him those again, he thus died. So this man would rather have died, right, than to be taken by these heathen. Okay, so we're going to go into what happened with Nicanor, okay, or Nicanor for some of you brothers as well. So this is chapter 15. But Nicanor, hearing that Judas and his company were in the strong places about Samaria, resolved without any danger to set upon them on the Sabbath day. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him said, "Oh, destroy not so cruelly and barbarously, but give honor to that day, which he that seeth all things hath honored with holiness above all other days." Then the most ungracious wretch demanded if there were a mighty one in heaven that had commanded the Sabbath day to be kept. And when they said, there is in heaven a living Lord and mighty, who commanded the seventh day to be kept. Then said the other, and I also am mighty upon the earth, and I command to take arms and to do the king's business. Yet he obtaineth not to have his wicked will done. So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. But Judas had ever sure confidence that the Lord would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty. And so comforting them out of the law and prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they won afore, he made them more cheerful. And this is one of the reasons why we have to go through these scriptures. We go through these days, these high holy days, and these observances of events that occurred, such as the destruction of Nicanor and the Feast of Purim, which commemorates, of course, the victory that we had over Haman. We go over this to give us remembrance of the things past, of the victory that we've gotten in times past. And what this does is it builds up your confidence, right, in the Lord, knowing that he's able to do these things. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. Let's get to when he got taken down. So let's see. All right, so here it is. Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with the trumpets and songs. This is verse 25. They're now 26. But Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer, so that fighting with their hands and praying with God with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000 men. For through the appearance of God they were greatly cheered. Now when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness. Then they made a great shout and noise, praising the Almighty in their own language. And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens both in mind and body, and who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder and bring them to Jerusalem. So when he was there and called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower, and showed them vile Nicanor's head, and the hand of that blasphemer with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty. And remember, that's what he did. That's what I read in the previous chapter, and that's why they cut off his hand, the same hand he stretched against the temple. All right, and they cut off his head. And then verse 33, and when they had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls, and hang up the reward of his madness up before the temple. So every man prays toward the heaven, the glorious Lord, saying, Blessed be he that kept his own place undefiled. He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower as evident and manifest sign upon all the help of the Lord, and they ordained all with common decree in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mardochius Day. Okay, so Mardochius Day. So exactly another day, which is this right here is being Mordecai's day. Okay, so that's why it's important for y'all brothers to know when you read these things, especially when you get to the book of the Apocrypha, the spelling is different than what you would read in the Old Testament in some of these words. So it's important for you to know what days this is talking about. This is the reason why this is a dual lesson, because it is the following day after that is Mordecai's Day, which is also known as the Feast of Purim. Okay, right now we're having a spiritual feast, observing this day. I know many brothers and sisters can't always be together during the week, but you know, this is something that we do in remembrance of this day. And you know, it's something that you see how important it is for us to ensure that we don't cast away our confidence and that we're built up in the faith in these words, okay? Because these words are life, okay? And it says, and if I have done well, and as is fitting the story, it is that which I desired, but if slenderously and meanly, it is that which I could attain unto. For as it is hurtful to drink wine and water alone, and as wine mingled with water is pleasant, and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delighteth the ears of them that read the story, and here shall be an end. Okay, so you see the story. If you want to get the full scope, this was a long chapter. I didn't want to bore y'all, but read what happened in between the beginning part that I read and this bottom part, and see exactly how they got the victory and how the Lord, you know, did magnificent things to help them take down 30 and 5,000 men. Okay, and so we're going to go on to the Feast of Purim. We're going to go briefly into the beginning part, okay, of the plot, Haman's plot against the Jews. You see here, Esther chapter 3 and verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite. By the way, an Agagite is an Edomite through the descendants of Amalek. Okay, so he would have been a descendant of King Agag according to biblical scriptures and history. Okay, so this is an Edomite, all right, who lived in Macedonia, okay, which is the same place where a lot of these the generals, all right, of Alexander, his father Philip, and the generals are from. All right, so that's later on, of course, as they take down the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire comes, and that's who's ruling. But during this time, the Macedonians had a fairly good relationship with the Persians, and he was trying to use it to take down our people. So we're going to get into this briefly. And it says, and advanced him and set him his seat above all the princes that were with him. Okay, so Haman was exalted. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did reverence him. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he sought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. Okay? So you see there that this man was full of hatred. Okay? And we're going to go into it. It says here, in the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is the lot. Okay, now Purim is a power, means lot or lots. Okay, Powerom, okay, which is the plural form of the word pure or pawar, okay, which means a lot. Before Haman, from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad, okay, and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws, therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. And he says, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business, and to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took the signet from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Okay? Perpetual hatred at play. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as seemeth good to thee. All right, and look, when it was happening, it says, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the 14th month. Okay, so this is pretty much the day of the first month, the 13th day of the first month. This would have been the day before where we would have kept our Passover. Okay, it says, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, and the king name that the king Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into the king's provinces to kill, destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take spoil of them for a prey. Okay, now it's interesting because this same day, 13th day of the 12th month, is a day that is, we just commemorated, right? Which is the destruction of Nicanor. So this shows you the parallel with Haman and Nicanor. All right, a guy that was not a king, but that was below. He was below in rank. Okay, I believe it was Demetrius Soter, who was the king at the time, and Nicanor was one of the generals. Okay, one of his leading men. Same thing with this. This guy Haman was one of the bigger men in the province, in the empire, because he was exalted, right, by King Ahasuerus during that time. And both of them in their position sought to destroy our people. Okay, so what we're going to do after reading this, for y'all brothers and sisters to get a good idea, we're going to go ahead and jump over to Esther chapter 8. So this is starting at verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Okay. Now, we're trying to cut it short. You brothers and sisters, if you want to find out what happened in between Esther chapter 3 and going into chapter 8. Go ahead and read in between. A lot of stuff is going to be in the prior chapter, chapter 7, 5, and 6, leading up to get to that point. So you can see how everything was flipped against Haman, all right, to set all this whole thing up. So now Mordecai is over the house of Haman, meaning he has authority to do as he pleases over his house, okay? And it says, and Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Okay? No different than these people that are drumming up what they're trying to do against us, as we watched in these different videos and in the article. So it says here, then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. Now remember, when you think about these type of things, these type of letters, that was basically that letter, that decree was to be carried out on a particular day. That day was going to be on the 12th month, the 13th day. That day is similar to what you would call a purge. Okay, remember, purge is a day in which anything goes, right? So you see that this is the type of behavior that you could potentially see here in Babylon. Okay, is a day that is commemorated as a form of a purge that you can do as you please against these people. All right, and for them, these people would be our people. So we have to see and understand the parallels of the kind of situation that we can be brought into, because there is no new thing under the sun. These type of things can happen where if our people are declared as domestic terrorist threat, and people have the right to fight against domestic terrorism and to take up arms against suspected terrorists, what does that mean about you? Where does that put you? It puts you in a place of danger. You, your family, your brethren in the faith as well. Okay? So keep going on. Verse 6. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? And how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, okay, and him that had hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Okay, so you see there they say they had Mordecai. See, Esther set Mordecai over, okay, the house. Remember, Esther is the niece of Mordecai, and King Ahasuerus confirmed, all right, that he given that authority. So we're going to go into the king's decree to avenge us, right? This is verse 8. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed it with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then when the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, or in the 3 and 20th day thereof, it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and to the deputies, and rulers of the provinces which were from India unto Ethiopia, in 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish, which is the same thing we read that Haman had wrote, right, in Esther chapter 3, all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon mules and camels went out, and being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in the royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad, and the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and in every city whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day, and many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now that is a figure of speech, meaning that many of the people became glad and happy like them, celebrating with them over the decree. Didn't mean they converted, okay? That means that they began to have an affinity and for that particular time. That's the reason why in that particular feast of Purim, the other nations, okay, that were not counted towards this destruction, you better believe they were happy, because the decree came out from the king that we could do whatever we wanted, all right, to any of the people, any people that had given us trouble throughout all those provinces. So you better believe that those people are going to be very happy, okay? So we're going to go on to the next chapter. So now this is verse 1, chapter 9 of Esther. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th of the same day, when the king's commandment and decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. Okay, which is going to happen in the end days, when the Lord comes back, when the kingdom is set up. The elect of Israel is going to have authority over those that hated us. Okay, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. So imagine all these different Israelites in all these different cities throughout the province, this big province going, far and wide. We're talking from as far as Ethiopia, as far east as India, and you got men clicking up together, saying, "Yo, we're about to execute this decree." All right. So it says the Jews gathered together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because of the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. So in these provinces, these other nations, all right, their lieutenants and deputies and officers, they helped our people, all right, come against these people that we wanted to take down. Okay? For Mordecai was great in that king's house, and his fame went throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And this was known in the time of the Persians, bro. This was known all throughout these provinces. This news of these other nations that were outside of the capital of Shushan, all right, which is in Elam, they saw this go down. And those stories continued with them about this event that happened. Okay? So you got to understand, some of these nations in their history, they know about this. You got Edomites that still probably salty against Elamites against this. Some of these beefs and things that you hear about, when you see about, these quote unquote Israelis coming up against these Iranians, you don't know there's so many multiple facets of that hatred. There's a deep history of that rivalry, so to speak. But ours goes way deep, okay? Esoterically, it goes past even before Jacob and Esau, but that's a whole nother topic, right? So it says, and in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And they go over all the places where they did it, all right? And they named the sons, and Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Asphatha, and Paratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmasha, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vajestha, Satha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. So the enemy of the Jews, okay, Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, right, who's the son of Amalek, who's the son of Esau, was destroyed. On that day, the number of those that were slain in the Shushan the palace was brought before the king, and the king said unto Esther the king, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in the Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition, and it shall be granted thee? Or what is thy further request, and it shall be done? All right. And then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let the Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. Now, see, remember, she was given this counsel by her uncle Mordecai. Now, a lot of you sisters out there, right? Would you be ready to give such? Would you be down with such a decree, or would you go out there and just be focusing on, being a wench? You know what I'm saying? How many of y'all really ride or die? You know what I'm saying? How many of y'all really ride or die for the nation as far as like this stuff going on? Or y'all like, oh, we should love everybody, So you got to understand, you got to have that same mentality that Esther had, man. You think she cried when she thought about his sons getting hanged, when her people about to be destroyed? See, we got to understand what we're up against, okay? Verse 14. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day, there it is, also the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. All right? He says, but the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of their foes 75,000, but they laid not their hand on the prey. Okay. So on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made a day of feasting and gladness. And as we go on, it says, but the Jews that were at Shushan assembled themselves together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. All right. So you see there, that's exactly how it's done. Therefore, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Adar, which is the 12th month, a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. Okay, and that is how it was. And then, of course, Mordecai institutes the Feast of Purim right here. Okay, and it says, verse 20, and Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in the provinces of the king, and both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and on the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. Okay. So, man, this is a great story, man, of deliverance because of the things that were happening to our people, man. And this is why you have to let our people know, man. That's part of the observances, man, because what happens is if you don't think about these things, this is how easy it is for men to come up and arise and start saying that you got to save the other nations when we had to be delivered out of the hand of the nations. What's the whole point of you celebrating these things if all nations can be saved and delivered? Okay, our defender is the Lord, okay? And he sends out, okay, people in his stead to do the deliverance. Whether it's through devised plans of wit and of zeal and of faith from Mordecai, or whether it's another way, right? Where he does a miraculous destruction and deliverance, okay, on his own by sending his own mighty angels to do it, right? So it says, but when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he had devised against the Jews, okay? In fact, let me go back here. It's actually 24. Because Haman, the son of Ammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them and had cast Pur, that is a lot, the lot, to consume them, to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by the letters that this wicked device, which he had devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, or Purim, okay? After the name of Pur, okay? Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all their as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, according to their appointed time every year. And of these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Okay, so this is something that was kept throughout all these provinces from every generation. And remember, our people were scattered. So you have to remember that there was those of our people that still remained in these different scattered areas even after this decree that came from Cyrus to return back and build up the temple. That's the reason why when you go to Acts chapter 2, you still had our people that were in these same provinces stretching from Ethiopia all the way to India. Okay, when you go to Acts chapter 2, you see these different regions where our people were coming back for the feast, for the Pentecost. So you have to remember that these things, this remembrance was being done generation to generation. Okay? And it helps us with keeping our remembrance of these things, man. And the other nations, they even remember that because they know when we're keeping those feasts, they know, oh, that's the Feast of Purim. And they even would say that amongst themselves. You know, back then, nations knew things about other people, man. Not like now where a lot of our people are, greatly ignorant, even though there's mass amounts of information. So, that's basically what it is, man. These letters were sent out. They appointed it. So it's pretty much it, man. So hopefully, y'all got the gist of that. Like I said, I highly recommend y'all brothers and sisters read, that Maccabees concerning this and read that full Esther concerning this. We're going to go ahead and finish it off. This is Psalm 37 and verse 12. The wicked plotteth against the just and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy and to slay such as be of upright conversation. Their sword shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. So hopefully this is edifying. And again, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'asham Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.